Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD webcast that we found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you get previous shows and more information about upcoming shows at my website behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce actually two guests tonight. The first is Sal Landers, an award-winning musician. Sal, welcome to be my guest today. Thanks for joining me. And if you would, wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Do a big wave. And that's Sal. And Sal, I'll let you do the introduction to your other guest. Who's our other guest with us?
This is a 2-year-old mini golden doodle named Sophie Doodle, and she's quite a ham, and everybody loves her.
Okay, well, I can see why, so I'm glad. Thank you, Sophie, for joining us as well. Sal Landers, an award-winning music indie rocker, began writing songs at the age of 10. And you'll tell us story in a second. I'll ask you a great story you told me off the air. And nowadays, whether performing solo or with her band, Sal Landers Party RX, she brings the same intensity and love for the audience that made her a stage legend in her touring days. We're lucky to have her based in Asheville after moving from the Los Angeles area. And so, Sal, the question I always ask people the first time I meet them on the air is, you began playing at what age?
10 and a half, yeah.
Okay, that was the first time you began playing. Did you know as a girl, even before 10 and a half, that you always wanted to be a rocker?
My mom and dad told me when I was about 2, the Lawrence Welk show was on, which you may remember.
I do.
And I would sit in front of the TV and go, batar, batar, batar. I don't remember this, but my mom and dad told me that, and my grandma told me that, batar, batar. And I made them get me a little Mickey Mouse guitar when I was like 2.
Oh, me too. But what's kind of interesting, you never played Lawrence Welk kind of music, though. That's not your kind
No,
of music.
he later ended up being neighbors with his honky-tonk pianist, Joanne Castle.
Is it really? Well, then you
Yeah.
told me, I have to ask you to tell the story. I was talking to you off the air about the Turtles, and you had a great story. You told me your relationship to the Turtles was when you were 10. Tell that story, if you would.
Well, I had become a complete Beatle maniac on July 9th, 64, when the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan. So I devoured everything on the radio, 93 KHJ and out of LA and KRLA. And the Turtles were on all the time with a big hit, Happy Together. And there were some other big hits. And I love them. And I bought their album. My mom got it for me. And it turns out that we lived in Laurel Canyon in a place called Laurelwood, which at the time we lived there, we moved there when I was 7. And it was when Joni Mitchell, Crosby,
Right.
Stills, Nash and Young, Jackson Brown, we were there. But I was too young. But my dad found out that the drummer of the Turtles, who I love, the Turtles, lived right down the street at the corner of Donna Marta and Donna Pagita. And he grabbed me with he's bring your guitar, Beetlehead, and marched me up to the door of this and knocked on the door and opened. And there was, I recognized him from the cover of the album, tall, lanky, dark, longish hair. I don't remember his name. My dad said, "Hey, we're your neighbors. My name is Sam, and this is my daughter Sal, and she writes songs, and I want you to listen to him." And the guy, I remember his face. He was like, "Okay, come on." And I remember sitting on his couch. I remember his couch. And I played the first 2 songs I wrote for him. One's called Who's There, and the other one's called My Dog.
Well, that's really cool. So you started writing songs at the age of 10,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
earlier. So since then, how many songs have you written?
Maybe about 125, 150. But this first song I wrote, Who's There? It's really weird. Can I do this, Blaine? Can
Yeah,
I
I
show
love
you?
it. If it plays,
So
yeah.
I'm 10 years old. I'm in 5th grade. This is 1966. And here's the lyrics that came out, and there was no thinking or what do I want to write about. I'm a 10-year-old kid in 5th grade. Check these lyrics out. I'll do it in A since my voice has gotten even deeper. Who's there? Who's there? to guide me through the living, and who's there? Who's there to watch over me and my friends? Who's there? Holy night. Tomorrow will I be alright? Who's there? Kind of heavy for 5th grade.
I was going to say it. So that's the first song, one of the first songs you ever wrote?
Yep, that one and My Dog. Yeah.
Well, I love it. My Dog, that must have been a very heavy song also. My Dog.
My dog, soft and tender. Oh, my dog, the one I'll remember. My dog is the one for me. It wasn't Bob Dylan stuff, but nevertheless, it was coming out. It's good.
But I can't believe you still remember them, the songs.
I remember the first poem I wrote for 2nd grade assignment. It was the pyramids in Egypt and Cleopatra. It's the first assignment I remember in my life. And the assignment was, and I found the thing I wrote it on up in the loft. You travel back to Egypt where Cleopatra lives, and Mrs. Montgomery is 2nd grade, Colfax Elementary School. And you travel back to Egypt and you bring something from today with you. So write a little poem about that. So I don't have any, self-editing concepts, awareness of people liking or not liking. So I remembered it. It went, oh God, now I'm not going to, hold on a second. I landed in Egypt about 2 seconds ago. I landed with a thud on Cleopatra's toe. I knew their language from a cereal box. Cleopatra was mad about the toe that I crunched. She said, "Oogum boogum." I said the same. Then she led me down Cleopatra's lane. In a little black box lay the parent's foe. I brought with me a radio. Tuned into the groovy station. Egypt is now a rock and roll nation.
I love it. You still, by the way, I can't believe you remember that, were you reading that or that was off memory?
I just remember it. And I did find the piece of paper upstairs, but I've always remembered it. I thought for 7 years old or so, it was pretty good. But it's so different then because there was no concept of pleasing anybody else, which later came when we got the publishing deal with Sony and stuff. There was no trying to write a hit, trying to please anyone. It was just what was coming out, which is the most beautiful thing. One of the reasons why I think being an adult is highly overrated. Being childlike is where it's at, man.
I love it. By chance, I doubt it. Is that teacher still around? Do you ever check?
Her name was Mrs. Montgomery, and so I was 7. So I probably not.
Okay, what a shame, though. Wouldn't that have been cool if we could have sent her, you remember Mrs. Montgomery all these years later.
It would blow her mind. But
Can you imagine?
it's funny. We all remember these interesting things.
So fast forward then. So it started at 10. Did you ever have, as a kid, did you have lessons, guitar lessons or music lessons?
I learned from my mom would buy me the Beatle records the day they came out. They were $2.98 plus tax, $3.10. Bought them on Ventura Boulevard and in the San Fernando Valley there, right below Laurel Canyon. And let's see. So what was your question?
Yeah. When did you ever have lessons to
Yeah,
become?
so I listened to Beatle records and I started figuring stuff out. And they taught me how to sing. Paul McCartney, John Lennon, listening to the early Beatles stuff, which is still the stuff I prefer. But my dad my dad had a screen door company. It was a little company like with 2 employees, and some hippie dude, he made screens for his house. He said, "Hey, I'll trade you the screens for your place if you'll give my daughter some guitar lessons." So he comes over, and my mom and dad had given a big classical guitar with nylon strings. The strings were like this far off the fretboard, so really hard for me to play. So I remember this lesson. I remember where we were sitting in the living room, and he showed me the chords A, E, D, and A, and also G, with these 2 songs. The Stones, Ruby Tuesday.
Sure.
This by Ruby Tuesday. It's A, E, and D. So I learned those. And then another song from the Seeds that went, "You pushing too hard, you pushing on me," and A and G. So I had and I was off and running, man. And all I did when I'd come home from school is listen to Beatle records and play those chords.
After that, did you ever have more formal lessons?
Yeah, I went to Duke Miller, and my mom would drive me down in Laurel Canyon to Duke Miller to take lessons from a guy named Al. He tried to get me to read music through the Mel Bay books, and I would sit there and like E, F, 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 G, G, G. And I would do that for like 5 minutes, and I'd go, the heck with this. I can hear it. I could hear because I was listening to Beatle records so much, and Turtles and Stones and everything that was, mid 60s was just so killer on top 40 radio. So I could play by ear, but I didn't want to sit there and read it. So I never learned how to read because I would use my ear, but it developed the hell out of my ear. But of course, chord charts.
At this point in time, you don't read music?
No, I've never, no, it's too boring and too slow. I could play it, I could listen to it and play it.
So what, you'll just listen to something once and then can play it?
Yeah, you can, like I've been messing around with, let's see. LS, my love's come along. You can hear where it goes. My lonely days are over.
Well,
There's a lot to be said for developing your ear.
well, just before when you were strumming, it almost sounded like Mellow Yellow. I heard like a little Donovan kind of thing in that.
Donovan was super cool. That song, Hurdy Gurdy Man,
Right.
Sunshine Superman, Mellow Yellow, uh, Atlantis. I was a major Donovan freak. Very underrated songwriter, in my
Yeah.
opinion, in music.
Well, you were telling me off the air so that these people you're doing covers of it, but then when did you get into writing your own songs seriously?
Seriously, probably when God, nobody's ever asked me that. Where I really started to get serious about it is when I wanted to bring songs to the band. I got recruited into a band and then formed a band while I was in college. And I think I wrote some as a teenager, but I got really serious about it in my 20s. And then when the band I was in and my ex, who was the drummer, we got a publishing deal. Then it was serious because it became our living. And so that childlike frame of mind from writing Who's There and My Dog, extemporaneously writing out of my head and heart without thinking, that turned into, like people loved whatever song. I wrote a song in the dorms in college about getting high. And then I thought, I'm going to see, they all say sex sells. So I'll change the words to make it about sex. So instead of the title being High with You, I changed it to Down on You. And and you know what? It became one of live and on our first record. We shouldn't be here, but I have to confess. It's a stripper beat. My heart is pumping as we start to undress. There's really nothing more that I would rather do than hit the lights tonight and go down on you. You can see.
I'm listening to you, I'm saying it's too bad with My Dog, now we know where you'd be wealthy now because now we know where they got My Girl from. They stole your idea.
It's brilliant. Where were you when I needed you?
Right, exactly. But the bastards, they sold it right under you, My Girl, it could have been.
Got ripped. I wonder what the statute of limitations is for that. I'm gonna have to dig into it.
Is it? But I just hear you. So when did you have your first band?
Actually, the very first band, I was probably 11 with my mom's best friend, Jerry Sullivan, her son, Bobby. And we played over in their living room. And I think they lived in Van Nuys. Serious band for like doing it for a living. I was going to school in at Cal State Sacramento. We had moved from the valley up to Tahoe, and then I moved down to Sacramento, and an all-female band, an all-female band of all lesbians, go figure, recruited me to play rhythm and sing lead. They had a phenomenal country lead player named Peggy Marvin, who, so this is probably, let's see, 1980, around 80. So I don't recall hearing of any shredding female country players. This woman was fantastic. So we'd be doing like, good old Rocky Top, and I'm doing this, and she's just blistering. That was the first band I was in, and they were very good. It was called Angel Fox, and we did country and disco. So we go from country and we go from like, on the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. And we'd go into stuff like this, and these cowboys in some of these places up outside of Sacramento, we'd do stuff like, toot toot, hey, beep beep, toot toot, hey, beep beep. Donna Summer, right? Bad girls. And these cowboys would be like, what? Because we'd be going from Willie and Waylon into Donna Summer. It was weird. We were weird.
Well,
Fit right in.
when was the first time you ever got paid to sing?
To sing. I think probably 25 with Angel Fox. Yeah, and I went, this is a good job. I can drink. I'm playing night. I actually did eventually end up with a bachelor's and a master's degree through all this somehow. But I liked it, and it became a lifestyle. We did some touring. They went to New Mexico. I flew there, and it was just a lot of weird experiences. But that band, I don't know what happened, but I moved. I got involved in a relationship and moved back to LA, and then I started doing the solo thing at like Holiday Inns, and the Holiday Inn in Anaheim during the Olympics in 1984. It was weird because it was like deserted, because a lot of people split from LA because it's going to be crazy here. And this is in Orange County, Anaheim, right by Disneyland. So we'd have Australians in there going, do you know Skippy the bush kangaroo? And I'm like, what? No. They go, how can you not know that? And I go, because I grew up in the valley, man. I don't know Skippy the bush. I mean, I was trying to be accommodating, but you can't know everything.
Well, but you have quite a range of songs, And talk about,
Yeah.
you and I were talking off the air. So you have all these covers, but now you're wanting to get back. You were telling me some of the original stuff. Is that your goal?
Yeah, I want to get back to, the main goal, Blaine, that we were talking about before we started. The main goal now for me, because I had enough. We never cracked open. We almost did. I don't know if you want to go in order of all this, but when the band was Sal Landers and the Fixations and then Sideswipe, I ended up marrying the drummer and turned the band from my band into our band, and we got a lot of attention. And we did a showcase at a place called Genghis Cohen, which was a hot spot near A&M Records. And the owner, he was like, wow, he loved our originals. He goes, you guys like a female version of The Who? And he brings in this producer named Val Garay, who is a phenomenal world-class producer. He produced and won a Grammy for Betty Davis Eyes. He comes in to see us. He goes, I want to work with you guys. We didn't seem to gel with him, but before we realized that, he brought in a guy that he wanted to represent us as a manager. The guy's name was Doc McGee, who we found out was at that time managing two bands who were doing pretty good. One of them was called Kiss. The other one was called Bon Jovi. So Doc McGee shows up at our rehearsal space at our drummer's mom's garage, converted garage. And in walks Doc McGee, had the total black Armani and everything. And we're like, oh, there's really nowhere to sit. Can you just move those clothes? And So he listened to us for a while, and this is what happened. And also with a couple labels, the same thing. He said, "I'd sign you in a heartbeat." I hope he sees this. I hope Doc McGee sees this, because I bet he'll remember this. Because we were like a female version of the Who, and our originals were strong, and we delivered them very high energy. And he said, "I'd hire you in a second," but he goes, "Y'all," he goes, "no offense, y'all is me talking now, living in the South." He said, "No offense, but you guys are what's known as dinosaurs." And he says, "You're too old. I don't know how to market you." And A&M let us record a record there. First, they said, "Just go and record a couple songs." And then one of the head guys came in and said, "We love what we're hearing. Just keep going, do a whole record." We recorded a whole album. I have it in 5 days. And then they came in, they talked to us and said, we would sign you, but we don't know how to market you. You're 40, me. My wife, the drummer, was 32. Our bass player, who was phenomenal, Mac, Melissa Connell, who's now in New York. My dream is to play with her again. She was like John Entwistle and who's the guy from John Paul Jones is that his name, from Zeppelin? She was phenomenal, phenomenal. So we were like a female version of the Who, and everybody, and then Judy Ross from Reprise, who I think it's on the Indigo Girls, they also the same thing. At that time, it's 96, 97, 98. It was an issue. We were old. I think Doc McGee, the number he used was, if you were under 25, I'd sign you now. But in the mid and late 90s, for an all-female band, even if you were like the Who, to be 40, Mac was, I think, 45 or something. So we ranged from like 32 to 45. That was old. Now
I was going to
with
say that.
you,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would care. I think people would go, I'm into the people that dig. I think they go, I'm into this. I don't care what their age is. I love the music and I love the performance. We were super high energy. My performances now are super high energy. I work out and do interval training so that I have enough cardiovascular endurance to get through it.
No, we'll
But
talk
we,
about that. I'll certainly, because I had the pleasure of seeing one of your performances, and yeah, definitely high energy, but it's so funny you said that, because I was talking to somebody about this just the other day, that not every, but a lot of the famous music groups, in the 70s and 80s, and they're as big as ever. It's just incredible. But it's incredible, Sal, too, that performers can play at that high level, and still are outstanding.
yeah, but a lot of them crash and burn, Blaine.
Well, yeah, I guess you don't hear about those, but hear all the ones who didn't crash and burn. I can't believe guys are. My favorite concert I ever saw in Asheville was Leonard Cohen. I was a big Leonard Cohen fan.
Oh.
And it was very sad, because he had to play, he retired or something at 75, then his manager took all his money, so he had to go on the road again at the age of 78, and it was very successful, but he had no choice, he had to. And so the age wasn't the factor. I just love Leonard Cohen at any age. Talk about, Sal, if you would, how'd you get to Asheville then? So you had this journey, and you've been in Asheville how long?
3 years and
Oh,
4 months, a little over 3 years, not long.
how'd you get to Asheville?
I was living in California. I'd moved to be near my dad, as my dad was getting older, as my dad was getting into his 90s. And my mom had died in 2001, and I felt like, the least I could do is be near my dad. I mean, he paid for my guitar lessons and all that, and so he died in 2017, and I was kind of like, what's holding me here? I was living in the coastal areas of Orange County, like around Laguna Beach, Dana Point, Capistrano Beach, and it had become very congested. Southern California in general. My best friend
Sure.
lived in Thousand Oaks. So when I would go see my best friend, to drive from Laguna Beach to Thousand Oaks, you can do it in, I think, about an hour, 20 minutes, hour, 30 minutes. It would take 3.5 hours. Everywhere, PCH, everywhere was just so congested. And it was everybody was sped up and in a hurry, and nobody smiled and said good morning going into Starbucks or held the door. And and I wanted to get back to a slower pace. So I looked around. I went to Cancun and went, nah, it doesn't fit. I want to go to a place where there's good recovery because I've been in recovery since '94, and I really appreciate fellowship and 12-step groups. And anybody out there, that is not a violation of the 11th tradition. I have not violated anonymity because I am not saying which 12-step groups I'm in. It is perfectly fine, just like Betty Ford did, because I called there and asked how she did it, because I did an interview on the day of my, they put me on the lesbian news. I did the interview the day I got out of the Betty Ford Center. Called the Betty Ford Center. I go, how does Betty Ford handle, I don't want to, this anonymity thing. And they told me, she says she finds support in 12-step groups. Okay. So Cancun was out. Austin was really cool, but looked like a lot of frenzied development, which anywhere nice, I checked out Belize. Not really any recovery much there. Sorry, anybody in recovery in Belize. It was not enough for me, at least. Northern California. So I saw our old bass player's ex-wife and an old photographer had been posting. I'd see that on Facebook. I'd see pictures. Asheville, I love Asheville. I'm like, Asheville, is that in Florida? Is that on the East Coast? Where's Asheville? I've heard of Asheville. So I start Googling Asheville. I'm like, oh, North Carolina. Asheville, well, that must be very conservative. And then I find out, no, it's not. And I'm checking it out. So I'd gone to Austin for 10 days and I thought, Asheville might be the place. So I rented a Airbnb and rented a SUV for a month in April of 2021. COVID, COVID was that first time it was loosening up. And on day two, I made the decision to move here. I really love it. And it's so different, the music scene, because in LA, I'm a band leader of an all-female rock band. So that's different than being a band leader of bluegrass or folk or jazz, at least from my experience. I'm not going to say that's how it is in the world, but in my experience, it's a different thing. And in LA, the music scene was very competitive. Here, there's a ton of musicians and there's a ton of bands, but I'm experiencing, instead of competitiveness, I'm experiencing people holding out their hand and going, and being helpful and, hey, come sit in, and really being inclusive, not exclusive. And like the women to the front, Melissa McKinney, she brings in the women, and that was the first time I met so many people through her. It was wonderful. She does Women to the Front here. And I didn't know anybody, and and I felt, by the way, I moved here when I was 65. I didn't know anybody here. It was scary. My recovery sponsor and I drove across the country with my car with a little U-Haul with my guitars and amps. I'd sold my house and my stuff. And so Melissa McKinney really welcomed me, and Jenny Bradley knew a lot of people, and she's out. They're both outperforming a lot. And I've been very embraced and kind of in awe of how supportive the music community has been. At least towards me, they have. I don't know that everybody feels that way, but I do feel that way because that's what I've experienced.
And talk about, if you would, how you then created the Sal Landers group out here. Did you just put out the word that you were looking for musicians and singers, or how'd that evolve?
Didn't put out the word. I started showing up at gigs and looking around and seeing people, and I didn't post anything anywhere. I just started seeing people playing, and like their friend or their partner I'd start talking to them, and I maybe would say, hey, is this an exclusive thing they're doing in this band, or do they do other stuff? Because I don't want to pursue anybody who had you want to be respectful of the bands and the musicians. So when somebody would say, like a partner or whatever would say, oh, they do different work and stuff. Well, I'm putting a band together, so I'll be in touch, and I'd go check them out. And it's more than just their musical ability. It's people's attitudes, it's their availability, attitudes, and workability and professionalism. Showing up at rehearsal, prepared with the material, showing up on time, being professional at a gig. I actually have started a new rule where no drinking until after a show or rehearsal.
Interesting. So
Drinking or
talk about in the current group, which I've seen. Who's in the current group right now?
I've just changed. There's just been a switch up. Mark Tumo,
Yeah.
and I've got Dave Halstead, who's a lifelong player, very much jazz, but he's coming into a rock thing. He's fantastic, really technical wizard. And I brought back Mike Filipponi, who's
Yeah, the best. Yeah.
he plays bass the way I love bass to be played, which is very very he reveres the melody that's going on. He doesn't step on the melody. He doesn't overplay. But when he takes a solo, he means business. And he's got a muscular kind of approach. His bass playing sounds and feels muscular. And his solos are fantastic. He has a really great, and his ear is fantastic. He's a fantastic ear. Just like Mark plays sax and keyboards. And Mark goes, yeah, I'm like your Clarence, you know. He comes out, like I go, come out by me and I really want to, I go off of what the audience is doing. It's much easier to take a song list, you know, like this. It's much easier. Like, here's the one I'm working on for Friday. These are just the songs. And it's easy to just go set one, da 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 da, set two, da 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 da. But what I do is I take it and I check out the vibe, the audience, and then I pull based on the vibe of the song. Do people want to, like, is it, a raunchy version of Boots Are Made for Walking or something slow and romantic? I go off the audience. Let
So
them.
what you're doing in Asheville, so it's no longer just an all women's band.
It wasn't an all women's band. We had Mark in there.
And Mark, yeah, but
Yeah.
originally, but now so you have how many people in the band now?
Four, but I've been wanting to add. I've been looking around. I've been looking for a fifth player for a long time, who is really strong on harmony vocals. What I would love is percussion with great lead and harmony vocals. But here's the thing in Asheville, the people who are great, and again, I want to emphasize, this is simply my experience and what I've seen. I don't like to make blanket statements on this is how it is. It's only what I've seen. The really great top players who are seasoned pros, they tend to be in many projects. So availability, this is what makes it so hard here to have an original, at least for me so far, an original thing, to get an original thing going is I need the same players,
Right.
or at least rotate, have maybe 3 drummers who are up to speed. That would be fine. I'm cool with that.
How often do you rehearse?
Right now, we're going to get back into rehearsals once a week, Tuesday afternoons.
Because I'm a little disappointed with what you just said. I was hoping you'd say you're looking for a cowbell player, and I was going to be there. I could do the cowbell.
Oh, you get full credit for offering, Blaine. I mean, it's your generosity of spirit, I think, that one of the things that makes you so compelling, along with that razor sharp, quick wit. But no, I really, and listen, for me, you got to have if a band's gonna be great, you have to have a great drummer. If you must have a great drummer and you must have great vocals. And I would love to have a percussionist I did a thing with the guy, Jimmy, and I don't even remember his last name. I was a worship leader at St. Andrew's United Methodist Church in San Clemente, California for a few years, right up until when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And this was 2014, 2012, 2013, 2014. And I met this guy, and because what I like to do, especially on acoustic guitar, and I'll do it with the band, I'll change a song in the middle, and the song might go, like, we might be doing something like going into Boots Are Made for a Walking. Psycho version. And then I might change it into a and then let the drummer goes. So with a percussionist and acoustic guitar, if you're vibing together, you can fly into some trippy places. And I have a theory, people listen with their eyes. And if you're playing in front of people live, they can tell instinctively that you're flying without a net. They can tell by watching you. And I think audiences really appreciate when you have the balls to take the risk. So I would love to find a percussionist that I have that magic with and bring them into the band, and then also be doing out acoustic work with them.
Now, talk a little bit about if folks want to see you. You were telling me they have a couple of gigs upcoming, and I want you to talk about one in particular. But next couple of weeks, where are you going to be?
This Friday at the Hilton's Rooftop Bar for Valentine's Day on Friday the 14th at 7 p.m. And then we're doing the Save the UNC Woods. UNC is doing something and they're not being real transparent in North Asheville. So there's a big event at Sly Grog on Sunday, March 2nd. We're doing a slot. There'll be many bands there. Save the UNC Woods. Then we'll be at the Gray Eagle on March 4th doing a benefit for the Asheville Rotary Club to raise money for different scholarships and organizations that need money.
And just
And
talk about, hold on that one a second, because that's just incredible that you're doing this. Rotary is a really cool group. You were telling me, I think it's even cooler, is the fact that you're doing this to help them out, but where's the money going to? Or so you were mentioning about that.
the gal that contacted me said she wanted to know our performance fee, and I told her what it was. And then I said, and we're going to donate 100% of our performance fee back to you. Because she's like, why? And because that's why we exist. In California, my ex and I and the band, we did a lot of, when any legitimate organization asked us to do a benefit, we would do it, even if it was on a Saturday night, which meant we didn't get a paid gig on a Saturday night. We did it so much that they made us the grand marshals of Orange County Gay Pride Festival the second or third year they had it. And I found that out because I asked one of the board members, why are we the grand marshals? I mean, there's somebody, and they said, because you guys do so many benefits. So the Gray Eagle presents the Asheville Rotary Club fundraiser featuring Sal Landers Party RX. We're doing the Weirdly Woodstock thing that night. Tickets for that are $107.50. But that is a fundraiser. And I want to do more benefits. I put together a grassroots gratitude concert for Beloved, Asheville, and Pride last November. It was a wonderful turnout. The executive director, Amy Cantrell, I wanted her to speak. I wanted her to speak to the audience. It's different than on a video. I wanted them to stand there with her while she said what they have done. People were sobbing, Blaine. I was crying. It was amazing. So we're going to do that again. We're going to do another. I said from the stage, I go, should we make it a series? Come on, Amy, let's make this a series. And she's like, yep. So I've been in touch with her to do our second grassroots gratitude benefit. This first one was for Beloved and Beloved Asheville and Blue Ridge Pride. And the turnout was over capacity. So we're going to need a bigger venue. The events, there's a few more events. They're on at www.sallandersmusic.com, my name, and you just click on events. Also on the front page, I had the gal that does the website. I had her just put this up recently. A constant theme throughout my career has been one of service. At my core, I'm deeply committed to giving back to the wonderful Asheville community, which I am. She calls home. Raising money by bringing folks together to enjoy live music and has always been a prime tenet of Sal's humanistic philosophy. Benefits and fundraisers are her primary purpose, and she is happy to donate 100% of her performance fee back to the organization. It's on the homepage of my website. Even when I have to pay the musicians out of my pocket, a couple of them are donating, one of them I am paying. If I have to pay out of my pocket to do it, I'm still doing that. It's my form of donating. It's my form of service to the community.
Okay, well, very sweet. And so again, I encourage folks, if they want to find out more about Sal Landers, but also more importantly, where you're playing. So it's sallanders.com. Is that the website?
Sal Landers Music.
SalLandersMusic.com. I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. Also like to thank my producer, Cappy Cassetti. Hopefully we'll get to see you and your pup sometime in future. Last time though I met, you didn't bring the pup with you, so I was disappointed when I saw you at local joint.
She comes to some gigs, but not the loud ones. The louder ones, no, because I don't have any earmuffs that'll stay on her little ears.
Okay,
But like the acousticy ones or mellower ones, she gets to go because it's a volume thing.
okay.
She's
Well,
very,
I
very,
want to meet her in person, see you again. And again, folks are in for a treat. If you want to listen to some really cool music, see Sal Landers and her group, and we'll hopefully bump into each other sometime in the future again. Okay?
I hope so, Blaine. You're a treat. You're a pleasure. And thank you for what you're doing for the community by exposing people and spreading the word. It's all about community, man. So thank you.
And vice versa. Be well.